Hey, what's up, guys? Another episode of The Back Office with Dave and Jeff. We have a special guest here this morning, our good friend Gavin, bringing some expert insight on the betting lines and whatnot. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This Hungry for a Win pregame is brought to you by Edgewater Companies, Inc. Whether you're looking for a new casita by the beach or a post-game pad downtown, Edgewater is your go-to real estate solution. Please visit www.edgewatercompaniesinc.com for more information.
So week 4, the Jaguars are 1-2 so far. Unfortunately, a pretty lousy performance on national TV against the Miami Dolphins last week. We're looking to get back in the win column this week in a road showdown in Cincinnati against the Joe Burrow Bengals. It's looking like a cloudy and possibly rainy afternoon up in Cincinnati, so it should make for an interesting matchup. Let's go ahead and dive into the injury report. So some pretty key injuries today. The Jaguars get back DJ Chark, which is huge. Brandon Linder's still going to be out. We signed Stephen Hauschka, the kicker, to help out Lambeau, who was hurt. Unfortunately, he's hurt as well, so we're trotting out another no-name. So the kicking game might be a little shaky today. We'll see about that. But more importantly, the Bengals have some pretty key injuries. They are missing Geno Atkins, who's their stud defensive tackle, Mackenzie Alexander, who is a pretty solid corner, and then a number of other injuries, including another defensive tackle, Mike Daniels. So we'll see how, and we'll talk about how that's going to affect the game. But Dave, let's go ahead and get into the base defense facts.
Let's do it. Yeah, it's time to lock down the bank. Overall, coming into this game, what strikes me is the Bengals are 26 in the league in points scored. They've also let Joe Burrow get sacked 14 times. From my vantage point, I mean, that's going to continue to be the key to the game is our ability for the pass rush to get home. But before we hit on that, I'd say that, we're coming in off a game where we allowed Ryan Fitzpatrick to throw for 90% completion rate, 2 touchdowns. That's got to be different with Burrow. They're too dynamic at the wide receiver position. They have A.J. Green. T. Higgins had a breakout performance last week with over 100 yards receiving. And Tyler Boyd, of course, who's been kind of a stable stable force in their wide receiver core for the last couple of years. I think all the dominoes are set up for this to be a big game for the Jags defense and really start to turn it around. That said, there's a lot of uncertainty out there given how we played last week.
Yeah, definitely big time concern about our secondary, and it's starting to feel like Joe Burrow, 3 games under his belt. This could be the game that is really his coming out party. They've played the Chargers, the Browns, and the Eagles. They tied the Eagles last week. So, they've played some pretty decent defenses so far. They are allowing, 38.4% pressures on dropbacks. That's the 5th most in the NFL this year. But Joe Burrow's been managing that really well. He has average time to throw of 2.6 seconds, which is pretty quick. So it's just so crucial that Josh Allen and Caleb on Chason, those 2 young guys, get it figured out this week. Because if you let Joe Burrow sit in the pocket, he's just going to feel so comfortable, and we don't have the secondary to cover all the weapons that they have.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that's the key to the game on the defensive side of the ball is Josh Allen. I mean, he's got to eat today. If that guy's not getting 2+ sacks, I don't think we're coming out of Cincinnati with a W. On the interior side of the defensive line, we can touch on the run game in a minute. It's obviously been much better than getting pressure on the quarterback, but Taven Bryan continues to be about as useful as a velvet painting of a whale and a dolphin getting it on. And I don't see that changing at all today. I wish they would just bench him and play some younger guys and see what we got at other spots. The bright spot that I think could potentially shine through is Devon Hamilton. I think with each progressive week, you see him get more snap count. He's been getting better every week, and so I'm excited to see how they use him. I think if they found a perennial starter in the 3rd round, that would be a great pickup for us. And it seems like all the arrows are pointing the right direction with him. So maybe, switching gears a little bit to what I touched on a minute ago on the rush side of the defense. Mixon is expected to play today. He was questionable throughout the week. but I believe they announced this morning that he's good to go. That said, he's coming in behind a very shaky offensive line. The Bengals, as we touched on earlier, have let Joe Burrow get hit a good amount. They've also haven't been super dynamic in the run game so far. Joe Mixon's only averaging 3.2 yards a carry after a big contract extension in the offseason. So obviously disappointing if you're a Bengals fan. But I think that the key matchups to watch are on the right side of the line on the interior. The Bengals are starting a guy named Alex Redmond, who has been on and off their practice squad for the last year or so. Re-signed to the practice squad earlier this week, brought up to the active roster midweek, and is now starting at right guard. So I think you should see the Jaguars blitzing that gap repeatedly if they're smart. Obviously, that leaves a big question mark around Todd Wash being able to scheme to that, and also putting our better interior players lined up against that right guard.
Yeah, from your perspective, what are your thoughts on Cincinnati's offense?
Yeah, Dave, just to add to a couple of things you touched on, I don't see a big game out of Mixon here today, particularly with the injuries you touched on, but also just how the Jags defense has been trending against the run. Actually, a low-key bright spot. We rank 10th against rushing success as a defense, as well as 10th in terms of explosive rushing. So limiting those 10-yard rushes and longer, those chunk rushes, I think will be key today. And that's even more important in a game script like today that we expect. That's big for me. Once again, just looking at the weather and how that might be a factor here. Rainy and 50s in Cincinnati. So I see a big day on both teams trying to emphasize the run, but I think Jacksonville will have success as the defense trying to limit Cincinnati there.
Yeah, totally agree. Before we maybe change gears and talk about the offense, one thing I figure we should talk about, because it's been a storyline all week and we haven't talked about it yet, is one, do you think that if given the option, i.e. we win the coin toss, we take the ball, assuming we continue our current trend of deferring to the second half, do you think the defense has the ability to get off the field without being scored on the first drive?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah, people were really angry online about this whole defer or take the ball or whatever. It's nice to have something to be angry about and point to that and be like, oh, that was the reason that we played so lousy. Altogether, it doesn't matter. The defense would have gotten scored on if, they came on the field for the second possession. But if given the option, I say you take the ball. And I guess this is kind of a segue to a Gruden grind for a win. But you take the ball and you let Gardner do his thing and just immediately double down on Gardner in the offense.
Yeah, Jeff, I would, to add to that, again, to your point, Jacksonville's ranking dead last in the league in terms of passing success. I don't think we want to allow Burrow to establish himself first and foremost. think we want to put him kind of on his back foot and put some pressure to make him answer Gardner there.
Yep.
Love that. So, Gruden grind for a win. Unfortunately, last Thursday night, the offense just seemed totally lost. I think it was a combination of Jay Gruden's magic kind of running out a little bit, maybe short week, maybe had a big Wednesday night on the town, who knows, with Jay Gruden. But, certainly they did not look like the same offense that we had seen the previous 2 weeks. And I think a lot of that has to do with DJ Chark getting scratched. That he's such a huge element to the offense, especially in terms of shifting the secondary and drawing attention. And being just a playmaker in situations where the Jaguars need to pick up chunk yardage. So I think that really messed up the game plan. Luckily, we have him back this week. What are your guys' thoughts on the offense this week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously want to touch on the passing game, but I'm going to start with the rushing attack. We've talked about the inverse of it as it relates to the Bengals. You're coming into a game where it's probably going to be a little wet. And you'd expect that, a larger percentage of the offense plays early on to probably be scripted as runs. Whether or not we actually see that play out, given the dynamics of taking the ball or not, remain to be seen. But What I'm looking for is James Robinson to extend on that Rookie of the Month nod that he got last week. Super exciting. First player, I believe, since Fred Taylor on the Jaguars to get that as a rookie. The Bengals, as we touched on, are missing 2 interior starters, Atkins, who's been out all year and who's a force on the interior defensive line. And then his replacement, Mike Daniels, is also out. So you essentially have, their third and fourth best guy up there at defensive tackle. That said, we're a little shorthanded in that Linder is still out with that undescribed knee injury. Hopefully we get him back in a week. I'd say last week, I'm trying to think back to the Dolphins game because it has been a while, like 10, 11 days, but I don't seem to remember noticing Shatley all that much, which is probably a good sign. So if we can continue that trend and not be talking about Shatley, I think we're in a good shape to take advantage of a Bengals interior defense that is 31st in the NFL against the rush and giving up over 180 yards on the ground per game. If we're going to win this game, I think James Robinson has to go big like he has, the last couple of weeks. And I don't think there's anything, out there to make you think that he's not. I mean, I think he's been even better than they quietly advertised when they cut Leonard Fournette. I don't think anybody expected this guy to effectively roll in as an undrafted guy, be a starter, and then be the Rookie of the Month nonetheless. So him continuing to do what he's been doing on the ground is super important to get the win today, which I think will tie in eventually to our Brinks Truck Lock of the Week, not to give anything away. But so yeah, first and foremost, I'm looking at the rushing attack. I think that's what matters to get the offense going. I think, last week when we played the Dolphins, we had to get away from that pretty quickly, given that, they scored on the first drive. We came down. Conley missed an easy reception on second and I believe 6 to get the chains moving. We called a stupid swing pass on third down that was never going to get past the sticks. And then lo and behold, we were down 14 points and the rushing attack just can't really come in the same way if you're doing that. So tying it back to what we've already talked about, I mean, I think if we get down early, that could really change things. I think the best thing we could do is strut out James Robinson with 10 carries over the first 2 drives and see what he's got. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Dave, just to add to that, I mean, the con of last week was that we only had 3 days to prepare, right? This week we've got a week and a half coming off of Thursday. I see Jay Gruden just really, having a lot prepared on the front end to start out a nice, clean drive. So coming back to our point about taking the ball, I love that in this spot.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you? What do you think about the rushing attack?
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a rainy day, that's going to be tough. I mean, James Robinson has looked incredible. He looks like a veteran running back. He's not missing opportunities. I was at the game Thursday, so I haven't gone back and watched the replay to really dive into it. But something that we haven't seen so far this year is Gardner running a whole lot. Last year the dude was pretty quick to tuck and run. So that's something that maybe we'll see today. The Bengals pass rush is not too astute. So he's going to have some time back there. Their secondary is sneaky good. They've got William Jackson, who's a pretty highly rated corner and is having a really nice year so far. And their 2 safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Von Bell's a thumper. You don't want to mess with that guy. And Jesse Bates is playing really great. So it would be interesting to look at how Keelan Cole and Chris Conley are going to bounce back in that number 2 wide receiver spot. And then, of course, Laviska Shenault. I'm just waiting for him to have an absolutely massive game. You just feel it.
And that's another guy you could see come in pretty heavy in the rushing attack. I think whether
he's our number 2 running back
out of the shotgun. Yeah.
That was an early year prediction. Just to pat myself on the back there. Laviska Shenault getting snaps at running back.
He's a big boy. He's a bruiser for sure. Definitely does not run like a wide receiver.
He's like everything we wanted Denard Robinson to be. He's like
that's a throwback.
But it's going to be fun to watch the offense get back on their feet today because I think they do. Full support for Gardner Minshew. Got the shirt on today.
Yeah, me too. I'm rocking the 15. Yeah, Gardner, I think is, as much as James Robinson is a key component to this game, I think so is Gardner. He's coming off a game where, from a completion percentage perspective, he was just as good as he has been. I mean, he threw, I think it was 30 of 42, so a hair under 75%. 275 yards, but no touchdowns. And I think it was probably harder for you being at the game to see it, but just there were no plays that were really stretching the defense. I mean, everything was short yardage. They run a lot of wheel routes into the flats and drags across the center, which is kind of the hallmark of Jay Gruden's offense, but never got any of those chunk plays to get the defense to kind of get back on its heels, which I think we've already talked about a little bit. I think the thing that can change that today is what you definitely already mentioned, which is DJ Chark's back, and that's a guy that you are forced to pay attention to in the secondary, whether that's doubling him or making sure there's a safety on his side. And I think that reopens up the Jay Gruden playbook in a way that we didn't really have last week. The Bengals pass defense is really, really solid, as you already alluded to. They're 7th in the NFL, giving up just over 200 yards a game. So it's going to be a really exciting matchup. I think Gardner's got a couple tutties in him today, though, which we haven't seen in about a week. So I'm excited to see him come back out. Yeah, the ball's going to be slick. It's not ideal conditions, but I think the magic is going to come back with our boy.
So for people watching the game today, both on offense and defense, where are your eyes going to be, like on any particular matchup or player?
That's a good one. I'll give you two. I think on the offensive side of the ball, I think a big matchup, partially because there's some history there, is Tyler Eifert lined up against either their linebackers or safeties. Eifert got a little bit more involved in the game plan over the last 2 weeks, but I think it remains to be seen what he's going to bring to the Jaguars offense going forward. It would be super poetic if he was able to pull that all together versus his former team and come in and get a touchdown. So I want to watch that one. And then for a second one, I'd say whoever their number 2/number 3 corner is on a consistent basis lining up against Keelan Cole. I think Keelan Cole has the ability to grab 5-6 balls today, and they need it. They need to spread the ball around. I think, again, bringing Chark back, leaves a lot more variability in the offense. And I think he's one of the key recipients of that. I was, really disappointed in Chris Conley last week. I would expect that you see a few less snaps from him. I think the coaching staff also seemed pretty disappointed in that performance. So I'm looking at Keelan Cole and Tyler Eifert on offense. And then on defense, we've already hit it a million times, but Josh Allen, he's got to get home. So what about y'all?
Definitely agree with Josh Allen. If in the broadcast I could watch C.J. Henderson against A.J. Green, I would love to watch that. He had a terrific first game. Hasn't looked as sharp the past 2 weeks, particularly last week. So I'd like to see him have a bounce back game.
And A.J. Green doesn't have the best history with Jaguars corners.
But I want to see Gardner, because he seemed just so lost last week. And I think part of it was all week they were chirping about how they knew what kind of defense the Dolphins ran. And what did the Dolphins do? Completely changed up their defense. They switched from man to zone. They played like 5 guys across the field. They didn't have to worry about a deep threat, which I don't understand why, because we have Chris Conley, who's an absolute specimen, who can run like a 4.3. But for some reason, that guy can't figure out how to make his body work for him. So I don't know, it looked like a flag football game from our side of the offense. And so I'm looking for Gardner to bounce back with a better game plan and take more ownership of this offense, which has been a little disappointing, particularly last week. But I don't know if there are fans in the stands in Cincinnati this week, but if there are, I mean, at the game Thursday night, there's only so much 10,000 fans can do to create a home field advantage. So, and this is a narrative that people haven't touched on a whole lot so far this year in the NFL, is that quarterbacks, particularly visiting team quarterbacks, have the ability to call audibles at the line of scrimmage with no crowd noise, making it so much easier. So you can go up there and see what the defense is giving you and communicate a change in the play design to everybody with full confidence that everyone's going to get it. So that being said, especially come 3 o'clock in the afternoon, third, fourth quarter, where it looks like it's going to be pouring down rain in Cincinnati. I want to see Gardner get creative at the line of scrimmage with some audibles. And like I said previously, I think it would be a prop to look at, see Gardner get some yards rushing today. It would be maybe this is the game that we see some like naked bootlegs or some read options. I would love that.
Yeah, I'd love to see them get around the pocket as well. And to emphasize the point you just made, I think if there's a quarterback that benefits from being able to sit there and look at a defense pre-snap and make calls, especially a young quarterback, I think Gardner's kind of the guy, right? I mean, the big, obviously the con on Gardner has always been, the combination of size and arm power, athleticism, whatever you want to call it. But the pro has always been, from a scouting perspective, hey, this guy's super smart. It's like the mental side of the game that he has in spades. And to your point, I mean, I think of all the years, this is the year that he can capitalize on that. And last week, he didn't really have the opportunity to do anything with it. So I would like to see that reverse today.
Just to add on a bit to what we're seeing from the numbers side with the away quarterbacks, it's actually bared out in the numbers quite a bit. You look in years past when you say home field advantage has been 3, even kind of coming down to 2.5 for some teams. I put the number now all the way down to just 1.5 for that home field advantage based on what we've seen this season. So big adjustment in the kind of the base numbers that we're seeing, and I think that should play to Gardner today. Exactly as you said it, Jeff. Allow him to control that offense.
Nice. Well, I think that makes it time for the Brinks truck back at the truck lock of the week. We got some really interesting props and betting edges to look at. Gavin, keep running with that. Talk a little bit about what the line is today, how it's moved, the total.
Yep. So we've seen the initial spread all the way down from Jags +3 all the way down to Jags +1.5. As of lately this morning, that move from 2.5 to 1 has been really encouraging. All happening kind of today. So I think some of the experts are seeing what we're seeing in terms of some of these matchups, and in terms of those matchups, the key one that we touched on a lot of good ones, but I think we've been previewing this all along is where we're going is James Robinson. We think he's due for another big game. We thought about targeting potentially an under here with that game script, under 49.5 if you can grab it is potentially in play. But sometimes, you get those slippery conditions, things can bust. I wanted to not expose ourselves too much there. And we think this James Robinson play is going to be a good one. In terms of game script, we touched on it. James has been explosive, right, in these spots. Jags are averaging, or they're 5th in the NFL in terms of explosive rushing. Those chunk plays of 10 yards or more. I think that will be key today. And James he's gotten his touches, right. He's averaged over 17 touches a game. For 113 yards. I don't see the Jags, again, going away from that at all, especially in conditions like today. So the play of the week for me is James Robinson over 78.5 combined yards. Did look towards the over just on the rushing yards, but a little bit fearful there again if the Jags get behind in that spot, they might have to be dumping off late in the game. So I feel very confident about those combined yards. I do see James getting 20 touches today. James grew up outside of Chicago, where I'm at today, in Rockford, Illinois. So he's used to conditions like this, used to carrying the load in gray weathers, and used to doing it with a good attitude, unlike his predecessor there. So I see him having no problem getting his 20 touches and averaging just the 4.5 or so yards he needs to eclipse that 78.5 yards. It is a bit juiced up. I'm seeing it all the way up to potentially -140, but I'm comfortable laying that juice and grabbing this one heavy.
Nice.
I like it.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with all that. Certainly, I think some other interesting angles to look at that Gavin you mentioned on the pre-show, but both quarterbacks will probably come out with good game scripts. We'll probably see some scores early. So the first quarter over might be a move, but what I'm thinking is once those two quarterbacks get settled in, the defenses get settled in, and that rain comes around 3:00, try to grab a live under. So
you nailed it.
Yeah,
you nailed it, Jeff. Anything in the area of 53 to 53 plus after a quick score or two will cash on the under later. I feel very confident about that. Just the true metrics I have in terms of the raw total for this one, I see a 43.2 based on my projections. So I'm seeing an under game just kind of off the bat. And to your point, I like the live under even more. Just, early on, the game scripts will be flowing. I see some points there. But that live under 54 should be juicy if we can grab it.
What are the key numbers people should look for, like above 50 or 48?
Yeah, 53 is pretty key.
Okay.
So if you can get 53 and a half after one quick score early in the first quarter, or after two quick scores, kind of as the quarter's changing, I like that a lot.
Awesome, Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like both those picks. I think this is kind of a derivative of the pick we've already made, but I think James Robinson's going to get a ton of action on the football, with the football rather, and I think it's highly unlikely that he doesn't get a touchdown today. So I also like the James Robinson over half touchdown at -115. I would take that and lock it in. So maybe before we end with our respective closing remarks, let's go around the horn. Game predictions. Who wants it, Jeff or Gavin? Who wants to go first?
Jeff.
I haven't given a whole lot of thought. I am nervous about Joe Burrow because until the pass rush can prove they can do it, they can't. And this does feel like a coming out party for him. So, I think they get a few scores early. The rain comes down. It gets into a bit of a grind of a game. Which team wants it more? So I think the Bengals end up putting up probably 24 points. Oh, man. I'd like to think Jay Gruden's going to come out and the Jaguars put up 27. So 27-24. That goes against our under, I suppose. So maybe it's closer to like a 20-17 game. That's what I'll lock in. Jaguars take it.
Gavin?
For me, I've got actually the true spread projection at this game, essentially close to a pick'em. Cincinnati like -0.1, so as close to a pick'em as you can get. I think while we might see some fireworks early, this game is going to get really tight late as that rain starts coming down. Teams won't want to make a mistake. So I think it's just going to be about limiting that mistake. So I put the game score at 21-20 Jacksonville, with James Robinson picking up some key fourth down conversions late in the game to ice it and ice both our win and our under.
I like that. I like that, Gavin, because I don't think we're gonna let that kicker kick anything significant.
Yep.
Yeah, you even have a bit of optimism there that he makes the 3-point after attempts. So.
Yeah, might even be a missed PAT for us there.
Well, yeah, I'll stick with the theme. I think I'm going to be a little higher than you two, but I'm gonna go with Jags win this one, 28-24. We hit the live under on that, and I think it's a game where I think Laviska Shenault gets a touchdown. I think Tyler Eifert gets a touchdown. I think James Robinson gets a touchdown, and I think Gardner takes one in with his legs. And I think you're going to see us down late with a game-winning drive from Gardner. He's 7-3 against the spread when he's an underdog. I think he's going to walk into Cincy and rip defeat from the jaws of victory. Did I say that right? No, the opposite. That's my prediction.
Well, all in all, sentiment is pretty low amongst the fan base after that ass whooping last week against Ryan Fitzpatrick. But there's still a lot to play for. I mean, not only with this new playoff format, wild cards are up for grabs. Looking at a team like the Tennessee Titans last year, they started 2-4 and ended up in the AFC Championship game. Not setting lofty expectations, but it's important for this team to continue grinding. If not for a possible wild card spot, just for the general sentiment of the team, it does feel like we have a nice culture brewing amongst some of these young guys who seem awfully focused in their profession. So, and you just got to keep rooting for Gardner, man. He's a guy that is easy to root for, and you want to continue to see him developing. So this is a big bounce back week for him, going up against, probably the shinier headline and Joe Burrow.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I'd reiterate, the AFC South is still wide open. The Tennessee Titans are 3-0, but 0-1 versus COVID. So who knows where that's going to shake out over the next couple of weeks. On the Jaguars side of the aisle, I'm excited to watch this game. I think that not to fall into too much hyperbole, but I think if you can't take a win here, the schedule is only getting tougher, and the momentum is only going to slow down. So I think coming out of this game 2-2 is super important. I think the team knows that. And I think we're going to see a W. It might be super ugly, but I feel good about today. I don't really know why, but I feel good. Bold prediction: if we go down, 14 points plus before scoring again, I think Todd Wash gets fired on Monday.
Wow, that's a bombshell. I mean, I'm in full agreement, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, let's hope that the defense looks a little bit more adept today.
Yep. Gavin, anything in closing before we sign off? And
no, I think Jeff nailed it. This is a game you got to win if you want to be a professional. You go on the road and you beat an 0-3 team. Nothing more to say there. Let's go about our business today.
All right,
hell yeah.
Love it. Go Jags, go Minshew. Let's get a W.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone that is watching. This has been week 4 of the back office. Gavin, thanks for joining us. That was very insightful. And can I get a collective Duval?
Duval!
Go Jags, baby.
Jags.
Get that dub.